So welcome to this week's Optimum Health Clinic Facebook Live. And thank you everyone for your comments last week. It was the most popular, I think, Facebook Live that we've done so far. So yeah, it seems to be working as a format. And I'm curious to see how these videos keep on unfolding. So this week I wanted to talk about sleep. It was something that someone requested during the Facebook Live last week, and several other people said it would be a topic they'd like to explore. So I've got, as the previous times, I've got some thoughts and ideas that I wanted to share. And then please do post questions as we go through the session as well. You can either post questions in response to anything I say, or if there's something you feel I haven't covered around sleep, feel free to post questions around that. And also if there's anything from what we say this week that you'd like to explore in more detail, or indeed anything that you'd like to cover that's different in subsequent weeks, feel free to post in the comments, because that's where I'm going to take the ideas and inspiration from for the sessions. So the first thing I wanted to say about sleep is, I think one of the things which is so frustrating in ME chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia is that we feel tired so much of the time, and often it just feels like if I could just get quality sleep, it would make the world of difference in terms of symptoms. Now, of course, one of the other things that's frustrating is often we can get good sleep and it doesn't necessarily correct symptoms, but it certainly helps. And certainly one of the factors which is critical on the recovery path is getting as much quality healing rest as we can. And sometimes getting to sleep can feel like we're trying to crack an atom in terms of complexity. And often the harder we try to sleep, the more difficult it ends up becoming. So one of the first things I wanted to say as well is that sleep is a natural process. Often working as a practitioner, if someone's struggling with sleep, they will say, what can you show me to help me to sleep? And the question I always respond with is, it's not what you need to do to get to sleep, it's what's happening which is stopping you from sleeping. Because sleeping is a natural state. And often the more we try to chase it, it's almost like being in the bath and trying to grab onto a bar of soap. And the more we try and grab it, and the harder we try and grab it, the more it slips away from us. And so understanding the wider picture around sleep can be really helpful. And I've got some just theoretical bits that I think will be probably useful to understand it. And then also a bit of a checklist of things to consider, which some just by being aware of them may well help you work with sleep. And others might be some signposts into doing some more in-depth work around it. So I think it's important to say that often what's happening at night is a reflection of what's happening during the day. We can get overly focused on thinking that our sleep problems are problems to do with sleep, as opposed to an expression of wider issues that are happening in our lives. And one of the ways over the years that I think I've found, people have found that's been helpful to explain this, is understanding in basic terms what's happening with our brainwaves. So this is a very crude and simplified way of thinking about brainwave patterns, but I think it is helpful. So if you think about brainwaves as being four different types, we have beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And beta, to put it in very simple terms, is busy mind. Beta is when we have lots of thoughts, we're concentrating, we're in conversation, we're doing things, we're active in the world. Our alpha state is a relaxed mind. So alpha is a state we might go into during meditation. Alpha is a state we might go into if we're relaxing, listening to music. Might be a state that we go into when we're with friends we feel really comfortable with and really happy with, and we just find ourselves kind of relaxing and chilling out. Theta is dreaming mind. It's either daydreaming if we're awake, or it's dreaming sleep if we're asleep. And delta is deep sleep. A helpful way to think about this is if you imagine beta, alpha, theta, delta as a kind of hierarchy. And if we have more beta during the day, we have a more active mind during the day. Firstly, that's more depleting and more draining during the day. It also means there's less time for alpha during the day. And alpha is a relaxed mind, it's a healing state, it is more nurturing, supportive to our nervous system. If we have more beta during the day, we tend to have more theta at night, because one of the purposes of dreams is to help integrate and process what's been happening during the day. So if we have a busier, more active mind during the day, we tend to have more busy dreaming sleep at night. And our unconscious doesn't differentiate between something which is real and something that's deeply imagined. So if, for example, you have one of those dreams where you're being chased by a tiger and you're running around and you're trying to survive and you're kind of conquering the world, whatever else you're doing, that is physically draining to the body. It also means we're having less quality delta sleep, and it's in delta sleep that deep healing happens in the body. So apart from understanding the importance of sleep to impact on our body's ability to heal, it's also helpful to recognize that the more busy our mind is during the day, the more likely we are to have more dreaming sleep at night. Also, the more likely it is to be difficult to sleep at night. Because if our nervous system is overstimulated, then there's more to process. It's also further for our nervous system to come down to be able to drop into a state of deeper sleep. It's almost like if we're holding on, we're rigid in our whole body, then we lie there and we try to sleep. There's a bigger process of settling and relaxation that needs to happen. And without that, it's hard to get towards deep sleep. If anyone separate to ME chronic fatigue fibromyalgia has had an experience where, let's say they had a young child which was seriously unwell and they were sleeping in a room with that child because they were concerned about them, it's almost impossible to get any deep sleep. Like you're kind of lying there the whole night, kind of braced, kind of, waiting to see what might happen, checking they're okay. We can be in that state without having that child just because our nervous system is overstimulated. So to support sleep at night, one of the things that's really helpful is working on calming down our mind and our nervous system during the day. The more we're in a calm, healing state in the daytime, the more likely we are to get quality sleep at nighttime. And there are some things I'll come to in a minute that you can do at nighttime, which I think certainly can be helpful and useful. But as I say, it's a bit of a red herring to get overly focused on what's happening with sleep without understanding the wider picture of what's happening in your life, which is then impacting you when it comes a time of trying to be able to sleep. I think the next thing which is helpful to understand is looking at if we've got lots of mental patterns of worrying and busyness that's happening in our mind, and we're worrying about our illness and recovery and the impact on our life and whether we're going to recover and impact on people around us, we're also sending lots of messages to our body and our nervous system that we're not safe. Literally, we're saying to our system, my life there is danger, I'm not safe. And our kind of programming as a kind of primate and mammal, which is then suddenly, I'm not safe, I'm not okay. We're actively sending a message to our nervous system to not relax and to not fall asleep. So just becoming conscious of the thought processes that are happening in of itself can be very useful. If you've done work with a practitioner at the clinic, or you are working with a practitioner at the clinic, then you'll know there are particular tools that we teach which will help you work with those mental patterns. And if you're not currently a patient at the psychology team, you might want to consider something like our 90-day program, either in person. We also have a 90-day program online, which is a great way of learning that toolkit. But learning to see those patterns, one of the phrases that I often use is, if you can see it, you don't have to be it. So if we can see those patterns that are happening, and we have effective tools and support to work with those patterns, we can often start to calm those and start to send a different message and have a different impact in terms of what's happening in our nervous system. I think also, if we've had a habit of not being able to sleep, one of the other things that can happen is we start to get a whole set of negative associations about sleep. So we start to worry well in advance of going to bed that we're not going to sleep. And we start to almost convince ourselves that we're not going to sleep. We start to imagine lying in bed and not being able to sleep. And it's almost like as we get into bed, there's almost a feeling of dread that's there in our body because we're anticipating that we're not going to be able to sleep. And I'm the first to say that life is not as simple as if you just change your thoughts, everything else in your life will change. I think that kind of pop psychology has kind of frustrated and confused and been very unhelpful for a lot of people. And it's true to say that there is a place where what you focus on does have some impact. Like if you are, say you're a footballer, or what in America you call soccer, and somebody is taking a really important penalty, and they keep visualizing missing, the research is they're more likely to miss. And so getting kind of some support and actively working on associations and what's happening in our mind about sleeping, that will also be helpful. I'd even go as far as to say there may be emotional trauma that's linked to it. It may have been so unpleasant on so many occasions of not being able to sleep that it's not just thought patterns that are happening, but there's also emotional impact that's there in your body. That working with things like emotional freedom technique, potentially EMDR, working with a skilled practitioner that can help you just release some of that stuff that's being held onto, that can also be extremely helpful. There's a few more points I'm going to come to here, and then if you want to post questions, I'm happy to obviously answer any questions as well. I think looking at the whole physiological side is also really important. Sometimes the reason why someone's not sleeping comes down to hormones, and it comes down to the fact that they have an excess of cortisol in the evening time, and cortisol is then crashing in the nighttime. And until you rebalance that, you're kind of fighting against yourself. And so looking at the adrenals and working with a nutritionist to do that can be extremely important. Looking at blood sugar can be really helpful. It may be as simple as eating more protein during the day, or even eating a protein snack last thing at night before you go to sleep. One of the things that many of us have been told, when we were kind of younger, and I think it's certainly old kind of knowledge, but being told to not to go to sleep on a full stomach. Well, for some people, going to sleep without a full stomach either means they won't easily get to sleep, or they'll wake up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning because their blood sugar's dropping and they're pumping cortisol and adrenaline, the body trying to compensate for that drop, and that's waking them up and stopping them from sleeping. So looking at hormones, looking at your adrenals, looking at your blood sugar can be a quite simple and extremely helpful physiological piece that can be super, super helpful. Looking at what's technically known as sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene is basically what you're doing in the later hours in the day, the last couple of hours before you go to sleep. So if, for example, you are watching kind of busy and stimulating TV shows, what if you are spending time on the phone in kind of stimulating conversation, or spending lots of time on the internet, on things like Facebook even, then there's research to suggest that stimulation from a screen or stimulation from around you can have a significant impact on your capacity to sleep. For some people, that stuff has a massive impact. For other people, it has very little impact. We're all different. I seem to be one of those people that can be, I work quite a lot in the evenings with some of my work, which is based in America, and I seem to be able to be replying to emails, get into bed, watch something on my iPad, close my eyes and just fall asleep, and has no impact on me. And other people I know, they absolutely need to be disconnected for 2 hours from almost everything before they go to sleep. And you just have to learn to listen to your own body and your nervous system in terms of what helps and what supports you. There's research to show that having a hot bath, and when I say hot bath, I don't mean burn yourself, but relatively hot bath, a couple of hours before you go to sleep can help. It's something about raising the body temperature and then the body temperature coming down afterwards that seems to mimic what would have happened in nature going back, 1,000, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years, where it would have significantly cooled and we were living outside, and that was a message to the nervous system to go to sleep. Being careful to not have the room too hot. We often think we want to be really comfy and warm, but actually if we're too hot, that can have a big impact on sleep. The final thing that I think is some of my list things to cover here before everyone wants to ask any questions is, what do you do if in the night you simply can't get to sleep? So what if for some people, the problem is not actually getting to sleep, so they get to sleep and they wake up and they can't get back to sleep. Other people, they wake every sleep cycle. The sleep cycle is around an hour and a half, and they seem to wake every hour and a half on the dot of the hour and a half. Other people, they just can't get to sleep, and just getting to sleep in the first place seems to be the problem. So if that's the case, the most tempting thing to do is to get frustrated and to try and fight it and to try and force yourself to get to sleep. And as I was saying at the start, the harder we try to get to sleep, generally speaking, it's like trying to grab that bar of soap in the bath. It just escapes from us and gets away from us. And so as much as we can, if you have any kind of meditation practice, if you've done any work with EFT or the stop process or any of the psychology tools that we teach, then using those to the best you can to just be with what's happening. The more you can relax in response to the fact you can't sleep, then what you'll find is it becomes easier. It takes the edge off it. It's like if there's the fact you can't sleep, there's this layer on top of your frustration about the fact you can't sleep, that layer on top starts to get in the way of it. So finding a way to just be with it as much, and that's a practice. The irony that I think a lot of people find is the point they absolutely give up, like it gets to like 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, they give up, I'm never going to get to sleep. It's like that's the point they fall asleep. And that's an interesting realization. The point you just give up and stop fighting can be the point that something actually happens. So I know that's a bit of a kind of rundown of kind of checklist of things. It's difficult doing these Facebook Lives to give really clear, actionable information because obviously I'm talking to a whole range of different people that have different experiences. But hopefully what that gives you is a checklist of things to consider. And what you'll hopefully find is that if sleep is an issue for you, what you'll hopefully find is that gives you some things to go, hang on, that resonates, and you want to explore and investigate that further. And it may be you can just do that in your own experience. If you're a patient, then something you can do with your practitioner. And if you're not, the best way to find out more about the Optimal Health Clinic is to request a free information pack, which has a free DVD of some inspiring patient recovery stories, and also a booklet which outlines the Optimal Health Clinic approach and also has some details on treatment at the clinic as well, along with a price list and that side of things. And then after that, if you want to find out more, you can request a free 15-minute chat with either or both of our psychology or nutrition team. And you can actually then talk to a practitioner, and we'll do our best to give you a sense if we think we can help you with your recovery. So it doesn't look like there's any immediate questions now, but I will log into the video later on this evening, and I'll try to same again tomorrow. And I'll see if I can, and I'll try and respond to anything then. Michelle's just put, I keep staying awake 24 hours at a time. I have fibromyalgia and double hip bursitis. Ever since I've been doing guided meditation, so what I would say, Michelle, is something is clearly happening there. I would, if you're not already talking to a practitioner at the clinic, definitely give us a chance to see if we can help understand what's happening. It sounds like your nervous system's so stimulated that it's only falling asleep when it's absolutely, completely and utterly exhausted. And we want to see what's going on there. Emma says, since I've been doing guided meditation, sleep has improved. Also, can you cover which supplements are good, worthwhile? So I'm afraid I always stay away from recommending supplements for two reasons. Firstly, I'm not a nutritionist. I oversee the clinic, but I'm a specialist on the psychology side. And also, what one person's medicine literally is another person's poison. And one of the things I get very nervous about in ME, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia is people self-medicating supplements when they're taking things that they may not actually physically need. So getting some, doing some testing, doing some investigation is a much more healthy way of looking at that. What do you think about taking something like amitriptyline? I was with a friend who was taking this for peripheral neuropathy, And she said she sleeps so well now. I'm tempted because I know it is sometimes prescribed for CFS. Yeah, amitriptyline is an antidepressant that's used quite a lot in ME chronic fatigue. I'm also not a medical doctor, so it's not appropriate really for me to comment too much. What I would say is the observation is it certainly helps some people. So it's, yeah, if it feels like something you want to explore, then I would go and talk to your GP about it. There's no miracle for most people in terms of sleep, but yes, it's true to say that there are certain antidepressants and certain other prescription drugs that can definitely play a part. Especially if there's very severe sleep deprivation. I definitely think in those cases, if the only thing that's going to support sleep, even if it's not always quality sleep, but it's going to support sleep, then those things absolutely can be appropriate. Karen says, I would like to relearn the stop. Something that I think is just a good general shout out to any former patients, that if you've done some work with a practitioner and it helped at that time, and then for whatever reason you focused on continuing with yourself and you'd like to check back, I think I mentioned one of these videos before, we offer free 15-minute reviews, which is like a free 15-minute chat, but it's something that we do for former patients if they want to just check in and see where they are now and see where we might be able to help things move forward from that point. Just reading Michelle's question. Yeah, so I would say, Michelle, definitely reach out and book a free 15-minute chat, and let's see if we can provide some perspective from doing that. That would definitely be the best way to explore that. So thank you, everyone. Do continue to put questions and comments. So I will log in again, probably, what time is it now? In about 4 hours time or so. And I will try log in again tomorrow. And please do also post underneath here comments about what you'd like me to cover next week. And then I believe the week after that, we'll have another patient recovery story then. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye-bye.